check my webcam. Everything looks like it's up and running. Now, do you know that it's not even 6 a.m. and I'm recording this super early? I just had my quiet time and I read, let's see, what did I read this morning? I read Proverbs 29 because today's the 29th. And then I read Romans chapter 7, that in that we know, those of us who are saved, we know what's wrong and we know what's sin, but we still live in this fleshly body, and even though we want to do right, so many times we don't. And that should be very sad to us. Okay, there we go. Let's look at our heritage studies this morning. Let's look at page 33. No, before that, we have a quiz to take. I forgot. So why don't you close your book, okay, and take out a sheet of paper. Get a piece of paper somewhere. Because I'm not going to have you print this one out. We're going to do a little bit different this time. That way it'll take a little bit off of your Nana. You won't have to print so much. So can you get out a sheet of paper? At the top of your paper, put your name, the date, and on the top line, put Quiz 2A. Quiz 2A. Okay. Quiz 2A. All right, so here's how it's going to work. I'm going to put the quiz on the screen, and don't pause it because I got to show you a little bit about it, okay? I'm going to tell you how to answer it. There's only 10 questions, and it's very easy, okay? So you'll answer the questions on your paper, okay? So after I explain to you the quiz, make sure you hit pause and pause it and go ahead and take that quiz. When you're finished taking the quiz, then you can go ahead and play it, and we'll do the lesson, okay? All right, so let's get the quiz. Now, this is Quiz 2A. I hope you can see it okay. I can zoom in just a little bit. I don't want to zoom in too much and then you can't see everything. So that's about as far as I can go. Now here's how we do it. On your paper, just write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, you can just write 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. You can just go all the way down. You don't have to skip lines if you don't want to. You can, but you don't have to. Okay? And then on 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, you're just going to put A, B, or C. Well, down here on 3, 4, and 5, it's just going to be A or B on this. Just A or B, whichever one's correct. Up here, it's going to be A, B, or C. Now, it says to write the letter of the correct answer on that, or answers in the blank. So there could be more than one answer. See, there's 3 answers, only 2 questions. So, oh, yeah, right here, there's 2. Dun, dun, dun. So number 2 is going to have 2 answers. Okay, so you just write the letter. And then on number 6, 7, and 8, you're going to write true or false. That's all you have to write. Now on numbers 9 and 10, it says mark the correct answer. So these aren't marked A, B, C, or D, but you can do that if you want to. You can just say A, B, C, D, and just put the right answer. Or you can write it. It's however you want to do it, just as long as you know what your answer is on that, okay? All right, so I hope you understand. Go ahead and hit pause and go ahead and take the quiz, but don't use your book. All right, did you finish the quiz? How well do you think you did? Let's check it. Here's the answers. We're going to go ahead and check it. If you have a pen, it can be any color pen, anything. Let's go ahead and check it. Now, if you got it wrong, it's okay. Just put a little X beside it. I may or may not grade this. It just kind of depends. You're not used to taking quizzes. This is new stuff to you, okay? All right, so number 1, you should have put B. And 2, you would have put A and C. Okay? 3 is B. 4 is B. And 5 is A. 6 is false. 7 is true. And 8 is true. Number 9 would have been B, or increased the cost of products. And number 10 should be B, or road taxes were expensive. Okay? I hope you did well on that. I would really like to see a picture of that if I could, so I can kind of see how you did on it, okay? Good deal. All right, so now put that aside and let's go ahead and look in our book. We're going to read 3 pages, I think. And then after those 3 pages, then I'm going to give you an assignment, a page for you to complete on your own based on what we read. So we're going to start talking about airplanes today. So look at page 33. At the top it says the airplane. Let's go ahead and read. Now you have to follow along, okay? Now, God has designed birds for flight by giving them a lightweight skeleton. They've got hollow or paper-thin bones in their wings and feet. Their flight muscles are designed for either gliding or flapping. Now, I've never been in an airplane before, and I think you and I have had this conversation before, but I've never been in an airplane. And am I afraid to fly? I really kind of am. I'm going to keep my feet on the ground if I can. Okay, now let's go ahead and look here, and we're going to, well, first of all, I want to remind you what a myth is. Do you know what a myth is? A myth is something that's not true. It's just something that started about somewhere. Okay, now, so we're going to read about a myth, something that's just made up, but it's really cool if you listen to the story, okay? So let's look at page 33. A Greek myth, it's not true, tells of a boy named Icarus who made a pair of feathered wings and learned to fly. His father warned him not to fly too high, but Icarus did anyway. He didn't know Ephesians 6:1, did he? He got too close to the sun, and the wax holding the feathers on the wings melted. The boy fell from the sky into the sea. In more modern times, there have been other people like Icarus. They dreamed of flying, but with much the same results. In England, about AD 1050, a man named Ilmer made some wings from linen stretched over wooden frames. He went to a high tower and pushed off into a fair wind. After flying almost an eighth of a mile, he crashed. He broke his legs and was lame for the rest of his life. Later, people tried to glide on the air currents rather than fly like birds. Around 1890, a German man named Otto Lilienthal made gliders. Now that's a dark word, so you'll need to know gliders. Gliders are machines that fly without engine power. His gliders looked much like birds' wings and tails. In fact, he made 16 kinds of gliders and tried over 2,000 flights with them. He never could stay in the air for longer than 15 seconds, but he helped prove that flying might not be an impossible dream after all. Now, so the story of Icarus is just a Greek myth. Now, Greek, going back to the times of the Romans and the Greeks, way back at after the death and resurrection of Jesus, up the few hundreds of years after that, they had a lot of myths back then because they worshipped gods, different gods for different things. You may have heard of some of the gods that they worshipped. Thor. Let's see, what were some of the other ones? Percy, I can't think of what they called him, but anyway, some of the gods that they worship, they were all just myth, and we call that Roman and Greek mythology. It's all just made up stuff. Well, anyway, so that's why this started out with a Greek thing, because it's just mythology, but that's what it is. Just going back to show that from the beginning of time, basically, people have thought about flying. Okay, let's look at page 34. Other people were also trying to make flying machines. Octave Chanute, now his name is bold, so you'll need to know him. Octave Chanute, an American, had seen Lilienthal and his gliders. Chanute returned home full of ideas for a better glider. He made one with rubber joints so that the wings could move with the wind. Here's another name you'll need to know. Samuel Langley, head of the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C., was building a flying machine that he called an aerodrome. And there's a picture of it at the very bottom. His aerodrome had a gasoline engine, and small models of the aerodrome had flown quite well. For one demonstration, Langley's great aerodrome, with Charles Manley as its pilot, was set to launch off the top of a houseboat on the Potomac River. But instead of flying, the great aerodrome lurched and slid right into the water. The newspapers jeered at Langley's soggy flying machine. The next day, the New York Times claimed that man would not fly until scientists had worked for another 10 million years. 2 months later, however, the newspaper would be proven wrong. On a windy beach in North Carolina, two brothers were about to change the world beyond anyone's wildest expectations. Wonder what their names were. Can you turn the page and we will find out what their names were, although I know you already know. It says the right idea. Now here's some names you'll need to know that you probably already know. When Orville and Wilbur Wright were boys, their father bought them a toy helicopter made of paper, cork, and bamboo. They played with the bat, as they called it, until it completely wore out. Then they used it as a model to make other toy helicopters that were bigger. Later, Wilbur said it was the bat that caused him and Orville to become interested in flying. When Orville was 17, he made his own printing press and set up a shop. Business was good, and he had to hire a helper. Wilbur and Orville also had a bicycle repair shop. This business became so large that they had 4 shops running. The brothers put the hired helper in charge of the print shop, and they began to design bicycles. Then during the winter, when the bicycle business was slow, Wilbur and Orville used their tools and knowledge in their lifelong hobby, making a flying machine. The Wrights wanted to know all they could about flying, so they wrote to the Smithsonian Institution. They received a list of books, some written by Langley and Chanute. The Wrights wrote to both men and received replies. Before long, the Wright brothers and Chanute were good friends. There's a picture right there at the bottom where one of the bicycle shops were. It's in Dayton, Ohio. They had a bicycle shop there. That was just a picture of it. That's a real picture too. That would be great to go see that, wouldn't it? So, all right. So, Orville and Wilbur Wright. What was it that kind of got them interested in flying? It was a toy helicopter. I don't know how they would have had a toy helicopter. That's what I'm wondering, but whatever. Now, where was it that they lived? What was the state? They lived in Ohio. Now, what businesses had Wilbur and Orville Wright started? They started 2 different businesses. They had a print shop and a bicycle shop. That's right. Now, how did the bicycle business help the Wright brothers with their hobby of wanting to fly? They had some tools and thoughts and ideas and stuff about flying because of working on their bicycles and things like that. So that's kind of what helped them do that. So how did, pardon me, how did the Wrights learn more about flying? They wrote to the Smithsonian Institution because they had some information about flying, and they also wrote to those 2 men, Langley and Chanute, who had already tried some of that stuff. And Chanute became very good friends with them because of that. So that was a good thing. All right, so that's all we needed to know today. Now go back and look on page 33. Let's look at the bold words. These are the words we're going to need to know. Gliders, Chanute and Langley. Those are 2 men that tried. Chanute was an American. Langley was head of the Smithsonian Institution. He's the one that did the aerodrome. And we also need to know Orville and Wilbur Wright. Those are just some things that we'll need to know. All right, so your assignment, I'd like for you to do work text page 26. Use the pages that we read to answer those questions, okay? And I do believe then that would be all of your lesson for the day.